The Starlight limped through space towards safe territory. The ship had taken damage during the escape. The shields were failing and the engines were running hot. But Katie nursed the old girl on with gentle hands and whispered encouragement in the medical bay. Samuel worked without rest. He had treated Danny's leg wound and stopped the bleeding. The engineer would walk again, but he would need time to heal. Lucy's arm required 47 stitches. She sat patiently while Samuel worked and did not make a single sound of complaint. The rescued prisoners filled every available space on the small ship. There were over 200 of them crammed in the corridors and cargo bays and even the engine room. The Starlight was not designed to carry so many people. The life support systems were struggling. The air was thin and warm, but no one complained. No one argued. The prisoners were so grateful to be free that they would have endured far worse conditions. Vera sat with Tovan in a quiet corner of the cargo bay. Her brother had not let go of her hand since the rescue. He was still shaking. He was still afraid. But he was alive, and that was all that mattered. Tovan looked at the humans moving through the crowd. They were distributing food and water. They were checking on injuries. They were comforting frightened children. Who are these people? Tovan asked. Vera squeezed his hand. They are humans. I have heard stories about humans, Tovan said. The legends say they are warriors. They say humans are dangerous. Vera nodded slowly. The legends do say that. Are the legends true? Vera watched Lucy Grant move through the cargo bay. The human commander stopped to speak with every prisoner. She asked their names. She asked if they were hurt. She asked if there was anything they needed. She listened to their answers with genuine attention. A Giovanni child had attached herself to Katie. The little girl had lost her parents in the raid and had no one left. Katie carried her everywhere and spoke to her softly and made her laugh. The pilot with broken ribs, who could fly through impossible obstacles, was being impossibly gentle with a frightened orphan. Samuel was treating an elderly Morthian woman who could barely walk. He held her hand while he worked and told her stories about Earth. He described mountains and oceans and forests. He made her smile for the first time in weeks. Danny was propped against the wall with his injured leg stretched out in front of him. A group of young Kelvari had gathered around him. He was teaching them human card games. He was laughing at their confusion over the strange rules. He was making them feel like children again instead of survivors. The legends are true, Vera finally said. But they are also incomplete. What do you mean? Tovan asked. The legends say humans are warriors. They say humans are dangerous. They say humans fight without fear. But the legends do not explain why. Why then? Vera felt tears forming in her eyes. Because they love others. They are not warriors because they enjoy violence. They are warriors because they cannot stand to see innocent people suffer. They fight because fighting is the only way to protect the ones who cannot protect themselves. Tovan was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the humans with new eyes. That is different from what I expected. It is different from what I expected too, Vera admitted. The Starlight reached safe space the next morning. The crew sent messages to the governments of every species represented among the prisoners. Ships came to collect the rescued people and transport them home. Vera and Tovan were among the last to leave. Their government sent a small vessel to retrieve them. But before Vera boarded, she went to find Lucy Grant. The human commander was on the bridge, supervising the transfer of the remaining prisoners. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and her arm was in a sling. But she smiled when she saw Vera. "How is your brother?" Lucy asked. "He will be okay," Vera said. "Because of you, because of your crew. I do not know how to thank you." Lucy shook her head. "No thanks are necessary. We did what needed to be done." Vera stepped closer. "I need to ask you something." I need to understand. Asked Dodd. Why do you do this? Vera's voice was barely a whisper. Why do you risk everything for strangers? Your ship is damaged. Your crew is wounded. Danny might never walk the same again. And you expect nothing in return. Why? Lucy was quiet for a moment. She looked out the bridge window at the stars beyond. Humans learned something a long time ago. She finally said, We learned that the universe is vast and dark and full of things that want to hurt the vulnerable. We learned that survival is hard and that suffering is everywhere. We learned that if you only care about yourself, then eventually you end up alone. She turned back to Vera. So we made a choice. We decided that we would stand between the darkness and those who cannot defend themselves. We decided that we would fight for strangers and bleed for strangers and die for strangers if necessary. Not because we expect rewards. Not because we want glory. But because someone has to do it. And we would rather it be us than no one at all. Vera felt tears running down her face. She did not try to stop them. I was wrong about your people, she said. I thought the legends were propaganda. I thought humans were just another aggressive species, using fear to control others. I was so wrong. Lucy reached out and placed her uninjured hand on Vera's shoulder. You had no reason to trust us. Your people have learned to be cautious because the galaxy has taught them that trust is dangerous. We do not blame you for doubting. What will you do now? Vera asked. Lucy smiled tiredly. Repair the ship. Heal our wounds. Then find the next group of people who need help. There is always someone who needs help. Vera made a decision in that moment. A decision that would change the rest of her life. I want to come with you, she said. Lucy raised an eyebrow. Not forever. Vera continued quickly. But I want to understand. I want to learn. I want to see more of who humans really are so I can tell the true stories. My people deserve to know. The galaxy deserves to know. Lucy studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. We could use a diplomat who understands why we do what we do. Welcome to the crew, Vera. Vera looked back at Tovan, who was waiting at the airlock. She went to him and embraced him one final time. I need to do this, she said. I need to tell our people the truth about humans. Tovan smiled. The first real smile she had seen from him since the rescue. I understand. Go learn their secrets. Then come home and share them. Vera returned to the starlight and watched her brother's ship depart. She stood on the bridge with Lucy and her crew, and felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. The legends spoke of human warriors. Vera had never trusted those legends, but now she knew the truth. Humans were not warriors because they were violent. They were warriors because they had hearts big enough to love the entire galaxy, and Vera was going to make sure everyone knew it. The assault began at what the humans called 0:30. This meant the deepest part of the station night cycle when guards were tired and attention was lowest. Lucy had explained that humans were experts at fighting in the dark. Their ancestors had been both predator and prey. They had learned to use shadows as weapons. Danny went first. He took a small shuttle and approached the base from an unexpected angle. His job was to disable the communication array before the Vorix could call for help. Vera watched him go with a knot in her stomach. One man against a fortified base. It seemed impossible, but Danny moved like a ghost. He docked his shuttle on the outer hull of the asteroid and cut his way through an access panel. 10 minutes later, the communication array went dark. Phase 1 complete. His voice crackled over the radio. Lucy nodded to Katie. Take us in. The starlight flew directly into the main landing bay. It was bold and reckless and completely unexpected. The Vorix guards barely had time to react before the ship touched down and the boarding ramp dropped. Lucy led the ground team out of the ship. Vera followed close behind, even though every instinct told her to hide. She had never been in combat before. She had never even held a weapon before this mission. But she could not sit safely on the ship while strangers risked their lives for her brother. The first Vorik's guard fell before he could raise his weapon. Lucy moved with terrifying speed and precision. She fired twice and both shots hit their targets. The other humans spread out and covered the exits. Samuel stayed close to Vera. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. "If anyone comes at you, run back to the ship." Vera nodded, but she did not plan to run. Not until she found Toven. The fighting was brutal and fast. The Vorks were tough creatures with thick scaled skin and 4 arms. They were natural warriors built for violence. But the humans were something else entirely. They moved like a single organism. They covered each other constantly. They called out warnings and adjusted positions without hesitation. They took hits that would have dropped a cavalry and kept fighting. Vera saw Katie take a blow to the ribs that cracked audibly. The young pilot grimaced and shot her attacker in the face and kept moving. She did not even slow down. "This way." Danny's voice came over the radio. "I have found the prisoner cells." The team fought through 3 more corridors. Vera lost count of how many Vorks fell. She also lost count of how many times a human took a wound that should have stopped them. Samuel was hit by a plasma bolt in the shoulder. The flesh sizzled and smoked. He made a small sound of pain and then kept moving. He would treat himself later, he said. Right now there was work to do. They reached the prisoner cells and found over 200 people crammed into tiny spaces. There were Kelvari and Dravani and Morthians and Hestari. There were children crying and elderly beings too weak to stand. There were wounds and bruises and the haunted eyes of people who had given up hope. Danny started opening cells while Lucy and the others held the corridor. Prisoners poured out in a confused flood. They did not understand what was happening. They did not dare believe they were being rescued. Vera pushed through the crowd calling her brother's name. "Toven! Toven, where are you?" A weak voice answered from the far end of the cell block. "Vera?" She ran toward the sound and found him. Toven was thinner than she remembered. His face was bruised and his clothes were torn. But he was alive. He was alive. Vera pulled him into her arms and held him so tight she thought she might break them both. "You are safe now," she whispered. "I am here. I found you." Toven clung to her with shaking hands. "How? How did you find me?" Vera looked back at the humans who were fighting and bleeding and dying to save people they had never met. "Some very brave people helped me," she said. An alarm began to wail. Reinforcements were coming. Lucy's voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone moved to the shuttle now. We are leaving." The retreat was worse than the assault. The Vorks had regrouped, and they were angry. They poured into the corridors from every direction. The humans formed a protective circle around the freed prisoners and began pushing toward the landing bay. Danny took a shot to the leg and collapsed. He tried to stand, but his leg would not hold him. Without hesitation, Samuel bent down and lifted the engineer over his shoulders. He carried him like Danny weighed nothing at all. No one suggested leaving Danny behind. The thought did not seem to occur to any of them. Lucy fought at the rear of the group. She was a wall of fury and determination. A Vorik soldier lunged at Vera with a curved blade. Lucy threw herself between them and took the blade in her arm. The wound was deep and blood poured down her sleeve. Lucy did not scream. She grabbed the Vorix by the throat and snapped his neck with her bare hands. Then she turned to Vera with blood dripping from her fingers. "Are you hurt?" Lucy asked. Vera shook her head. She could not find words. "Good," Lucy said. "Keep moving." They reached the landing bay and piled into the shuttle. Katie was already at the controls. She launched before the doors were fully closed, and the shuttle screamed toward the starlight. Behind them, the Vorik base erupted with weapons fire. Shots hammered the shuttle shields. Warning lights flashed, Katie cursed and pushed the engines harder. They made it. Barely. The shuttle docked with the Starlight, and Katie immediately jumped to faster than light speed. The ship shuddered and groaned, but it held together. Danny's modifications were good. In the cargo bay, Samuel finally let Danny down and began treating his wounds. Lucy sat against the wall and applied pressure to her bleeding arm. She refused treatment until every prisoner had been examined. Vera held Tovan and watched the humans work. They moved among the rescued prisoners with gentle hands and soft voices. They offered water and blankets and comfort. They treated wounds and calmed fears and held crying children. These were the monsters of legend. These were the fearsome warriors that made empires nervous. They were just people. People who had chosen to be kind in a universe that often rewarded cruelty. Vera began to cry. She could not stop herself. She had been so wrong about everything. The Starlight was not what Vera had expected. She had imagined a warship with heavy armor and powerful weapons. Instead, she found a modified exploration vessel that looked like it had seen better days. The hull was patched in several places. The corridors were narrow and worn. The crew quarters were small and cramped, but the ship felt alive. There were photographs on the walls. There were personal items in every corner. There was warmth in the way the crew moved around each other. "This is not a military vessel," Vera said to Lucy as they walked through the ship. "No," Lucy agreed. The Starlight started life as a science ship. We have made some modifications over the years, but she was never built for combat. Vera felt her stomach drop. "And you plan to attack a Warwick space with this?" Lucy smiled slightly. "We plan to rescue your people with this." There is a difference. The ship launched from Nexus Prime and headed toward the Shatter Belt. The journey would take 2 days. Vera spent most of that time watching the crew and trying to understand them. Danny Park was the engineer. He was a quiet man with sad eyes and clever hands. He spent most of his time in the engine room making sure the ship kept running. When Vera found him there, he showed her the modifications he had made over the years. Faster engines, better shields, hidden compartments for rescued prisoners. He did not talk about his sister Maria, but Vera saw the way. His jaw tightened whenever someone mentioned the Vorix. She saw the cold fury that burned beneath. His quiet surface. Katie Bell was the pilot. She was young and energetic with short blonde hair and a quick laugh. She treated the ship like a living creature and spoke to it constantly. She called it old girl and sweetheart and stubborn beast. She could navigate through asteroid fields with her eyes closed. Samuel Cruz was the medic. He was a gentle man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been a doctor on Earth for 20 years before joining Lucy's crew. He told Vera that he had seen too much suffering in hospitals. He wanted to do something more direct. The rest of the crew were equally dedicated. Each of them had a story. Each of them had lost someone or witnessed something that had changed them. They had come together around Lucy's mission and made themselves into a family. On the second night, Vera sat in the small common room with Danny and Samuel. They were drinking something the humans called coffee. Vera tried it and found it bitter but strangely pleasant. "Tell me about Earth," Vera said. Danny and Samuel exchanged glances. "What do you want to know?" Samuel asked. Vera thought carefully. "The legends say humans come from a death world, that everything on your planet tries to kill you. Is this true?" Samuel laughed softly. "It depends on how you define death world. Earth is not gentle. We have predators that can kill with a single bite. We have storms that flatten cities. We have diseases that have wiped out millions. We have earthquakes and volcanoes and floods." Danny nodded. "The gravity is heavy compared to most inhabited worlds. The atmosphere contains a gas that is literally poison to many species. The temperature swings from freezing to boiling, depending on where you are. Most galactic biologists say Earth should not have produced intelligent life, but it did. Vera said it did. Samuel agreed. And we survived by learning to work together. Humans are not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest creatures on our planet, but we are the most stubborn. We do not give up. We do not abandon each other. We fight for our families and our friends and even for strangers, because we learned that survival requires cooperation. Vera was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the Calvary approach to life. Her people valued caution and self-preservation above all else. They built their society around careful calculation and slow trust. They would never risk themselves for strangers. Perhaps that was why cavalry ships were flying to rescue the bright dawn. The starlight reached the edge of the shattered belt the next morning. Katie called everyone to the bridge. The shattered belt was an ancient debris field filled with broken asteroids and destroyed ships. It was incredibly dangerous to navigate. It was also the perfect hiding place for criminals who wanted to avoid detection. The Vorix base is hidden inside a hollowed asteroid near the center of the belt, Lucy explained. The only way to reach it without being detected is through the needle. The needle was a narrow passage through the densest part of the debris field. It was barely wide enough for a ship the size of the Starlight. One wrong move would send them crashing into rock. No Calvary pilot would attempt such a thing. Vera said, "Good thing I'm not Calvary." Katie replied with a grin. The passage through the needle took 4 hours. Vera sat strapped into a seat on the bridge and watched Katie work. The young pilot moved with impossible precision. She adjusted course constantly. She talked to the ship like a partner. She threaded through gaps that seemed too small and avoided collisions by centimeters. It was beautiful and terrifying. When they emerged on the other side, the crew let out a collective breath. Katie leaned back in her chair and wiped sweat from her forehead. "Told you old girl could do it," she said to the ship. Danny ran a scan from his station. "I have the base on sensors. 217 life signs. Most of them match prisoner profiles. I am detecting a group of Calvary signatures." Vera leaned forward with her heart pounding. "Tovan, I cannot identify individuals from here," Danny said apologetically. "But there's a good chance he is among them." Lucy studied the scan results with a calm expression. 53 Vorix soldiers. Heavy weapon emplacements. Shield generators. This is not going to be easy. Samuel checked his medical kit. It never is. Lucy turned to face her crew. Everyone knew the risks when they signed on. Anyone who wants to stay on the ship can do so without judgment. No one moved. Lucy nodded with pride. "Then let us go save some people." Vera looked at these 12 humans who were about to attack a fortified base against impossible odds. She thought about the legends and the stories and everything she believed. She was beginning to think she had been wrong about all of it. 3 days passed and Vera felt like she was drowning. She had contacted her government and begged for help. They had told her that the Galactic Council was investigating. They had told her to be patient. They had told her that these things take time. Time was something Tovan did not have. Vera knew what happened to people taken by the Vorix Syndicate. They were transported to hidden markets and sold like cargo. Some were forced into labor camps. Some disappeared into the pleasure houses of wealthy criminals. Some were never seen again. She could not eat. She could not sleep. She went through the motions of her diplomatic duties, but her mind was always elsewhere. She kept imagining Tovan in chains. She kept imagining his fear. She kept imagining the moment when he realized that no one was coming to save him. The official channels were useless. The Galactic Council claimed they were working on the problem, but Vera knew the truth. The Shattered Belt was lawless territory. No government wanted to risk ships and soldiers to rescue a single transport full of Calvary civilians. The political cost was too high. The danger was too great. Her people had been abandoned. On the fourth day, Commander Lucy Grant found Vera sitting alone in a quiet corner of the station. The human woman sat down across from her without asking permission. Her expression was kind but serious. "You look terrible," Lucy said. "When was the last time you slept?" Vera did not have the energy to be offended. "What do you want?" Lucy leaned forward and spoke quietly. "I know about your brother. I know he was on the Bright Dawn. I am sorry, Vera. I cannot imagine how frightened you must be." Vera felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "How do you know about Tovin?" "I did some research," Lucy said. "After our conversation at the reception, I wanted to learn more. I found the passenger manifest and I saw your family name. I put the pieces together." Vera stared at the human woman. "Why do you care? This is not your problem. These are not your people." Lucy was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small photograph. She placed it on the table between them. The image showed a young human woman with dark hair and a bright smile. "Her name was Maria," Lucy said. "She was the sister of one of my crew members, Danny Park. 6 years ago, Maria was traveling through neutral space when her ship was attacked by slavers. She was 19 years old. Danny spent 2 years searching for her. He never found her. He still does not know if she is alive or dead." Vera looked at the photograph and felt something shift inside her chest. "Danny joined my crew because he wanted to make sure no one else went through what he went through." Lucy continued. "We have made it our mission to disrupt Vorok's operations whenever we can. We have rescued over 300 people in the past 4 years. We cannot save everyone, but we save who we can." Vera shook her head slowly. "You are asking me to believe that you do this out of kindness, that you risk your lives for strangers, that you expect nothing in return." "I am not asking you to believe anything," Lucy said. "I am telling you the truth. What you do with that truth is up to you." The human woman stood up and placed a small device on the table. "This is a secure communication link. My ship intercepted a new signal yesterday. It matches the Bright Dawn's emergency beacon. The signal came from deep inside Vorok's territory. We have located the base where your people are being held." Vera grabbed the device with shaking hands. "You found them?" "We found them," Lucy confirmed. "But here is the problem. The base is heavily defended. My ship has 12 crew members. The base has at least 50 Vorok soldiers. The Galactic Council will not authorize a rescue mission. They say the risk is too great. Then what can you do?" Vera asked desperately. Lucy smiled grimly. "We can ignore the Galactic Council and go anyway. We have done it before. We will do it again. But I wanted to give you the choice. You can come with us or you can stay here and wait for official channels that will never move fast enough." Vera stared at the human woman. This was madness. 12 people against 50. A small diplomatic vessel against a fortified base. It was suicide, but it was also hope. "Why would you do this?" Vera asked. "Why would you risk your lives for Calvary strangers?" Lucy picked up the photograph of Maria and put it back in her pocket. "Because every person in that base is someone's brother or sister or child. Because no one deserves to be sold like property. Because if we do not help, then who will?" Vera thought about Tovin. She thought about his laugh and his dreams and his stubborn belief that the galaxy was good. She thought about the legends she had dismissed as propaganda. Maybe the humans were not what she had believed. "When do we leave?" Vera asked. Lucy nodded with approval. "Tonight. Pack light and be at Docking Bay 7 at midnight. Do not tell anyone where you are going." Vera spent the rest of the day preparing. She sent a message to her government claiming she needed personal time. She packed a small bag with essentials. She tried to eat something, but her stomach was too knotted with fear and hope. At midnight, she walked to Docking Bay 7. The Starlight was waiting. Lucy stood at the bottom of the boarding ramp with her crew gathered behind her. "Welcome aboard," Lucy said. "Let us go get your brother." Vera stepped onto the human ship and felt the galaxy shift beneath her feet. She was putting her life in the hands of people she did not trust. She was flying into danger with strangers who had no reason to help her, but they were helping anyway, and Vera was beginning to understand that maybe the legends were not propaganda after all. Vera-san stood near the observation window of Nexus Prime and watched the ships come and go. The trading hub was always busy. Hundreds of species passed through every day to buy and sell and make deals. Vera had worked here for 3 years as a diplomat for the Calvari government. She was good at her job. She knew how to read people and how to spot lies. She trusted very few beings in this galaxy. The Calvari were a cautious species. They had pale blue skin and tall, slender bodies, and large, dark eyes that saw more than most. Their culture was built on careful observation and slow trust. Vera's grandmother used to say that trust given too quickly was a gift to your enemies. Vera believed this with her whole heart. She turned away from the window when her assistant Nira approached. Nira was younger and more nervous and always carried a tablet filled with schedules and reports. "A human ship has requested docking permission," Nira said. "The Starlight." They claimed to be a diplomatic vessel. Vera felt her jaw tighten. Humans. She had heard the stories about them her entire life. Every child in the Calvary schools learned about the human warriors. The legends said they were fearless. They said humans would run toward danger instead of away from it. They said humans would die to protect strangers. They said humans had evolved on a death world where everything tried to kill them and they had survived anyway. Vera thought these stories were nonsense. She believed humans were simply another aggressive species who had learned to use fear as a weapon. Their military reputation was propaganda and nothing more. She had never met a human in person, but she was certain she would not be impressed. "Grant them permission," Vera said, "and assign me to observe their delegation." Nira looked surprised. "You want to observe humans personally?" "I want to see what all the fuss is about," Vera replied. The Starlight docked 3 hours later. Vera watched from a distance as the human crew emerged. There were 12 of them. They wore simple gray uniforms with blue trim. Their leader was a woman with brown hair pulled back from her face and calm, steady eyes. She moved with confidence, but not arrogance. She smiled at the dock workers and thanked them for their help. This was Commander Lucy Grant. Vera had read her file. The woman had served in human military forces for 15 years before transferring to diplomatic service. She had medals and commendations and a reputation for getting things done. None of this impressed Vera. Many violent people had medals. The humans looked ordinary to Vera. They were soft and fragile compared to many species. Their skin was thin. Their bodies were small. They had no claws or fangs or natural armor. Vera could not understand how such weak creatures had built such a frightening reputation. She followed the human delegation at a distance. As they moved through the station, they stopped to look at market stalls. They spoke politely to vendors. A young human male with dark hair bought a small toy from a Dravani merchant and gave it to a child who had been watching with longing eyes. The child's mother thanked him with tears in her eyes. Vera frowned. This was not what she had expected. Where was the aggression? Where was the intimidation? These humans seemed almost friendly. That evening there was a formal reception for all diplomatic delegations on the station. Vera attended in her official capacity. She wore her finest robes and kept her expression neutral. She planned to observe the humans from across the room and confirm her suspicions about them. But the humans kept surprising her. Commander Lucy Grant moved through the crowd with ease. She spoke to everyone with genuine interest. She asked questions about their cultures and their families and their work. She listened carefully to the answers. She remembered names and details and followed up on things people had mentioned earlier. Vera found herself standing near the refreshment table when Lucy approached. The human woman smiled warmly. "You must be Diplomat Vira-san," Lucy said. "I have heard good things about your work here. The Calvary are lucky to have such a dedicated representative." Vera was caught off guard by the compliment. She managed a stiff nod. "Thank you, Commander. I hope your stay on Nexus Prime is productive." "I hope so too," Lucy said. She paused, and her expression became more serious. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with someone from the Calvari delegation. We intercepted some concerning communications about a missing Calvari transport ship. Do you know anything about this?" Vera felt a small chill. She had heard rumors about a missing ship, but nothing official. "What do you know about it?" Lucy glanced around to make sure no one was listening. The ship was called the Bright Dawn. It disappeared near the Shattered Belt 5 days ago. We picked up fragments of a distress signal, but nothing more. I wanted to alert your government in case they were not aware." Vera studied the human woman carefully. She was looking for signs of deception or hidden motives. She found none. Lucy seemed genuinely concerned about a ship full of Calvary strangers. "Why do you care?" Vera asked bluntly. "The Calvary are not your allies. We have no treaties with your people. Why would you bother to tell us about this?" Lucy looked at her with something like sadness. "Because there are people on that ship who might need help." That seems like enough reason to me. Vira did not know how to respond. She made an excuse and left the reception early. She returned to her quarters and sat in the darkness and tried to understand what she had seen. The humans were not what she had expected. They were polite and kind and concerned about strangers. This did not match the stories of fearsome warriors. Perhaps the legends were exaggerated. Perhaps humans were simply ordinary people who had learned to fight out of necessity. Vera was about to go to sleep when her communication device chimed. She checked it and saw an encrypted message from her government. She opened it and felt the blood drain from her face. The message confirmed that the Bright Dawn was missing. It also contained a passenger manifest. Vera scrolled through the names with trembling fingers until she found what she feared. Toven-san, her younger brother. He had been traveling home from his studies on a distant world. He had chosen the Bright Dawn because it was affordable and the route was supposed to be safe. The Shattered Belt was Vorik's syndicate territory. Everyone knew what the Voriks did. They were slavers. They captured people from vulnerable species and sold them to the highest bidder. If they had taken the Bright Dawn, then Toven was in terrible danger. Vera sat alone in her dark quarters and felt her world crumbling around her. Her baby brother, the boy she had helped raise after their parents died. The boy who laughed too loud and dreamed too big and believed the galaxy was full of wonder. He was out there somewhere in the hands of monsters, and Vera had no idea how to save him.